Shalom everyone and welcome back to the channel. This week we are looking at Parashat Tazria-Metzora, which is a double portion from Leviticus chapters 12 through 15. And I will be honest with you, on the surface, this is one of those portions that a lot of people want to skip over. Skin diseases, bodily discharges, ritual impurity after childbirth. It does not exactly sound like the most exciting Torah reading. But here's the thing. When you open the Zohar on Tazria-Metzora, you find some of the most profound teachings in all of Kabbalistic literature. We are talking about the architecture of the soul, the mystery of conception, the spiritual origin of speech, and the entire mechanism by which the divine presence either dwells within you or withdraws from you. So don't let the surface level fool you. This portion is an operator's manual for the human soul, and today we are going to break it wide open through the lens of the Zohar exclusively. The portion opens with the words, "When a woman conceives and gives birth," and immediately in the Zohar, in Volume 3, Folio 42b, jumps on this and asks a question that most people would never think to ask. It says, if God alone determines whether a soul will be male or female, then what does it mean that if a woman gives seed first, she bears a male? Rabbi Yossi answers this in the Zohar, and what he says is fascinating. He says that the Holy One, blessed be He, distinguishes between a male drop and a female drop. And because He distinguishes between them, He decrees accordingly. So what is happening here is not a contradiction. It is two layers of reality operating simultaneously. There is the physical act of conception, and there is the metaphysical decree from above, and they are synchronized. This is a huge principle in Kabbalah. The physical and the spiritual are not separate systems. They are mirrors. What happens below reflects what is already happening above, and what happens above responds to what is initiated below. This is the secret of arousal from below. The woman's desire, her intention, her spiritual readiness, these actually participate in drawing down the nature of the soul that enters the world. And the Zohar adds another layer here. Rabbi Aha asks a very simple question. The verse says, when a woman conceives and gives birth. But conception and birth are separated by 9 months. Why does the Torah put them together in one sentence, as if they happen at the same time? And Rabbi Yossi answers that from the very moment of conception, the woman already carries the knowledge of what she has brought into being. Her speech, her thoughts, her prayers during pregnancy are already shaping the vessel that will receive this soul. The entire journey from conception to birth is one continuous spiritual event, not two separate ones. And then the Zohar goes even deeper in Folio 43b. It teaches that every soul, before it descends into this world, exists as a single unified entity containing both male and female halves. When that soul descends, it splits. The male half enters one body. The female half enters another. And if the two halves merit it, they will find each other in this lifetime and reunite. This is where the concept of soulmates actually comes from. It is not a romantic fantasy. It is Zoharic metaphysics. Your other half is literally the other half of your original soul. And the Zohar adds something remarkable here. It says that the female portion of the soul is actually larger and more powerful than the male portion. That is why a woman who gives birth to a female requires double the purification time, 14 days instead of 7, 66 days instead of 33. Because the spiritual energy involved in bringing a female soul into the world is greater. Now think about that for a moment. In a text written nearly 2,000 years ago, the Zohar is telling us that the feminine carries a larger portion of the original soul. This completely inverts the way most people think about these purity laws. It is not about the female being more impure. It is about the female carrying more spiritual intensity, which requires more time for the surrounding energies to stabilize. The Zohar then unpacks the specific time periods the Torah prescribes. 7 days of impurity for a boy, then 33 days of purification. 14 days for a girl, then 66 days of purification. And what the Zohar reveals is that these are not arbitrary numbers. These correspond to stages of the soul's integration into the body. When a baby is born, the nefesh, the lowest level of the soul, the vital animating force, has already been developing during gestation. But at the moment of birth, the next level begins to enter. This is the ruach, the spirit level, associated with emotion and moral awareness. The Zohar teaches that this ruach takes 40 days to fully settle into the body. During the initial 7 days after a male birth, the soul is in a state of total disarray. It has just transitioned from the upper worlds into the physical existence. Everything is unstable. The spiritual field around the mother is turbulent because she has just served as the channel through which a soul crossed from one dimension into another. That is an enormous event. The impurity here is not moral. It is energetic. It is the residue of a dimensional crossing. After those initial 7 days, the 33-day of purification begins. This is the period where the Ruach is actively settling in, and the mother's own spiritual field is recalibrating. For a girl, the doubling, 14 and 66, reflects the greater magnitude of the feminine soul's spiritual weight. And here is what's beautiful about this. The total for a boy is 40 days, 7 plus 33. The total for a girl is 80 days, 14 plus 66. 40 is one of the most significant numbers in the Torah. It rained 40 days during the flood. Moses spent 40 days on Sinai. The Israelites wandered 40 years. 40 always represents a complete period of transformation. And 80 is simply 40 doubled, reflecting the amplified spiritual process involved with the feminine soul. Now we move into the heart of the portion, Tzaraat. This is usually translated as leprosy, but that translation is completely wrong. Tzaraat has nothing to do with any medical condition. The Zohar makes it absolutely clear that Tzaraat is a spiritual phenomenon. It is the physical manifestation of an internal spiritual rupture. And what causes it? The Zohar, along with the Talmud and the Midrash, all converge on the same answer: Lashon hara, evil speech, gossip, slander. The Zohar connects the word Metzora, meaning the afflicted one, with the phrase Modzi Shem Ra, meaning one who brings forth a bad name. It is a direct wordplay, and it reveals the root cause. But the Zohar takes this much further than the Talmud does. It explains that speech is not just communication. Speech is a creative force. The entire universe was spoken into existence. Let there be light, and there was light. Every human being, created in the image of God, carries this same power of creative speech. When you speak, you are not just moving air through your vocal cords. You are generating spiritual realities. You are shaping the fabric of existence around you. So, when a person misuses that power, when they use speech to tear down, to gossip, to slander, to humiliate, they create a tear in the spiritual fabric. And that tear does not just affect the person being spoken about. It affects the speaker. It creates a blemish on their own soul. And when the blemish becomes severe enough, it breaks through to the surface. It manifests on the skin. It becomes visible. That is Tzaraat. The skin is speaking. It is revealing what has been happening on the inside. The body is functioning as a mirror of the soul's condition. The Zohar also connects this to the Shekinah, the divine presence. When a person speaks with purity and integrity, the Shekinah rests upon them. Their words carry weight. Their presence has an effect on those around them. But when a person speaks lashon hara, the evil speech, the gossip, the Shekinah withdraws. It literally departs from that person. And in the absence of the Shekinah, the forces of the Sitra Achra, the other side, move in. The affliction of Tzaraat is the visible sign of that withdrawal. It is the body showing you that the divine presence has left this particular vessel. And this is why the Kohen, the priest, is the one who diagnoses and declares the person pure or impure. It is not a medical diagnosis. It is a spiritual assessment. The Kohen represents Hesed, loving kindness. He is the channel of compassion. Even in the act of declaring someone impure, the intention is to guide them back, to help them see what they cannot see themselves. And notice the progression the Zohar describes. First, the affliction appears on a person's house. If they do not get the message, it appears on their clothing. If they still do not repent, then it appears on their body. God gives warnings before the final manifestation. This is mercy operating through discipline. The purification ritual described in the Metzora portion is one of the most symbolically rich ceremonies in the entire Torah. 2 birds are taken. One is slaughtered over living water. The other is dipped in the blood and released alive into the open field. Along with this, cedar wood, hyssop, and scarlet yarn are used. The Zohar in folio 55b explains that this is a symbolic transfer of impurity. The bird that is set free carries the impurity away. It represents the release of the negative spiritual energy that had accumulated through the misuse of speech. And the bird that is slaughtered represents the death of the old pattern, the killing of the behavior that caused the affliction in the first place. The cedar is tall and majestic. It represents arrogance. The hyssop is low and humble. It represents humility. The scarlet yarn represents the intensity of the sin, like a scarlet thread. Together, they create a picture of the transformation that must happen. The person must go from arrogance to humility, from careless speech to mindful silence, from spiritual impurity to realignment with the divine flow. And after all of this, the person shaves all their hair, washes in water, and waits 7 days before being readmitted to the camp. The shaving represents the stripping away of the external self, all the facades, all the projections. You come back to the community bare, vulnerable, renewed. The Zohar says this entire process is not just about physical cleanliness. It's about re-establishing the flow of divine energy within the person so they can once again receive the light. Now, here is something I want to connect for you. This Shabbat falls on the first of Iyar, and we are right in the middle of the Omer count. The specific sephirah for this Shabbat is Tiferet Shep Tiferet, beauty within beauty, or harmony within harmony. And this is not a coincidence. Tiferet is the sephirah that sits at the center of the tree of life. It is the balance point between Hesed and Gevurah, between expansion and restraint. It is the place where opposites merge and something new and beautiful emerges. The entire teaching of Tazria-Metzora is about this balance. Conception requires the balance of male and female energies. Purity requires the balance between the soul's descent and its integration. And healing from Tzaraat requires the balance between speech and silence, between arrogance and humility, between isolation and community. When you misuse speech, you are operating from an imbalance. You are letting one side dominate. Tiferet is the corrective. It is the sephirah that says, hold both sides. Speak, but speak with awareness. Be strong, but temper your strength with compassion. Be present in the world, but stay connected to the source. The Zohar Hadash connects this period between Pesach and Shavuot directly to the concept of purification. It says that when the Israelites left Egypt, they were sunk into the 49th level of impurity. And during these 49 days of the Omer, they ascended one level each day until they were pure enough to receive the Torah at Sinai. That's what we are doing right now. Each day of the count is a step in the purification of a different aspect of our emotional and spiritual nature. So here's what I want you to take away from this. Tazria-Metzora is not about ancient skin diseases. It is about the relationship between your inner world and your outer world, your soul and your body, your speech and your reality. The Zohar is telling us that every word you speak either builds or destroys. Every intention you hold either draws light into you or pushes it away. And when there is misalignment between what is happening inside of you and how you are showing up in the world, the universe will find a way to make that visible. Not as punishment, but as correction, as an invitation to realign. Guard your speech, purify your intentions, and remember that the process of healing is not something to be ashamed of. It is sacred. It is the path back to wholeness. If this resonated with you, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you do not miss the next one. I will see you in the next video. Shalom.